So students, today in this video, we are going to start with our 8th chapter, that is about winds, storms and cyclones. So we know what is wind. Wind is what? It is called as a moving air. When air moves, we call it as wind. Now cyclones and storms. They are also wind only, that is moving air. But when that air moves at different speed, causing destructions of life and property, then we give them the name as storms and cyclones. Okay, so here we will start with the two different cyclones that hit the coast of Orissa. That is the cyclones which were formed in the sea, that is Bay of Bengal, and caused a lot of destruction of property and loss of life. Now, Orissa was hit by a cyclone with wind speed of 200 km per hour on 18 October 1999. Now, because of this cyclone, 45,000 houses were destroyed, 7 lakh people became homeless because of the cyclone that occurred on 18th October 1999 in Orissa. In the same state, Orissa, and in that same year, one more cyclone that came on 29th October with a wind speed of 260 km per hour. And at that time, it also accompanied the water waves with it, and the water waves height was 9 meters. So you could imagine how much heighted water wave it was. So no person can stand in front of that, or no one can stand in front of that, or that much big heighted water wave, and can survive from that. So because of that, so many people lost their life, their property, and everything was destroyed, like agriculture, transport, communication, and electricity supply. So cyclones are very destructive. Similarly, storms are also very destructive uh, type of wind which flows with a very high speed. So in this chapter, we'll be looking into why these storms are destructive, how they are destructive, how they are formed, how wind flows. These all things we'll study in this chapter further. Now, first we'll start with the topic that air exerts pressure. Air also has pressure. Air can push you in front and back. So, how that is possible? So, this is explained by a activity here, that you have to boil water in a tin can and fill half of the tin can with water. Then, as the water starts to boil, you have to boil the water for some time, and then you have to take the water, put off the flame, and then you have to close the lid of that tin can. And after just 2 to 3 minutes, you just have to put that can under the tap water, under the cold water. So what will happen is, you will see that the can will the get compressed, will get squeezed. Why this happens? So because when you poured that cold water onto the can which contains hot water, the steam that was inside the can, got converted to water. That water vapor, the steam is the water vapor. The water vapor converted into water, reducing the amount of air inside. So air is what? One type of gas, right? So water vapor is also gas. So that water vapor got converted to water. So the amount of air inside the can decreased, and because of that, the pressure of the air inside the can decreases, but the pressure that is outside the can, that is more as compared to the pressure of the air inside the can. And because of that, what happens? The outer air pressure pushes the can inside, and that is why the can becomes compressed or squeezed. Okay, so this experiment, similarly, when you ride a bicycle, if the wind is flowing in the opposite direction, what happens? you cannot move in front you because the wind is pushing you back. So it is said that all this happens when something moves. This all happens because air also exerts some force, or air also exerts some pressure on objects. Okay. Yes, the topic that we started with, the topic that we just finished, is that air exerts pressure. We saw how air exerts pressure with the activity of a can which was having hot water, and when we poured a cold water on it, what happened? The air inside became less, and because of that, air pressure was less, and air outside the can was having more pressure, so the can squeezed. Now, the next topic is that high speed winds are accompanied by reduced. So, it is said that wherever the wind is flowing, the place where the wind is flowing with a very high speed, at that place the air pressure is very low. Now, how can we prove it using an experiment or using an activity? So, here in the activity 8.2, what you have to do is you have to take a bottle, you have to put a small make a small paper ball which is smaller than the size of the mouth of the bottle, and then you have to blow air from your mouth on the top of this paper ball inside the bottle. So what happens is the paper ball comes out. It does not go in. Why it happens so? Because when from the place from where you are blowing the wind, at that place the air pressure is low, and inside the bottle the air pressure is more. So the air that is inside the bottle pushes the paper ball out, and that is why the paper ball comes out and falls down. Similarly, there is one more experiment given to you in your textbook. That is, you have to take two balloons, fill little amount of water in both the balloons, tie the balloon with a string to a stick, both the balloons, but keep some space between the balloons. And when you blow the air between the two balloons, what happens? The balloons don't move apart from each other, but the balloons come towards each other. Why? Because we know that wherever the wind speed is high, the air pressure is low. So, in between these two balloons, the air pressure is low, and here on the sides the air pressure is more. So that is why the air pressure that is on the sides of the balloon pushes the balloon to the center, and that is why the balloons move towards each other. Similarly, one more experiment is there, the paper strip. You have to take a paper strip, put it on your lower lips, and then blow the air up from above the paper strip. So what will happen? The paper strip will move up. Why? Because the place from where you are blowing the air, at that place the air pressure is low because the wind speed is high, and below the paper the wind speed is low, so air pressure is high, so air is pushing it up. Okay, so these are the three activities which makes you clear that why the uh, paper strip moves up, why the balloons come together, and why the paper ball that should is coming out of the bottle rather than going inside the bottle. Because it is said that wherever it is said here that the increased wind speed is always accompanied by a reduced air pressure. So wherever the speed of the wind is more, at that place the pressure of air is less. Okay, so that is why it happens. That is why it happens when a wind flows with high speed, the roof of the house, why it gets blown away with the wind? Because the wind is blowing from top of the roof, so air pressure is more, but below the roof the air pressure is uh, air pressure is low above the roof, because wind is flowing with a very high speed, and below the roof the air pressure is high, so the air pushes the roof up and it moves with the high speed wind. Okay, so this is the thing what happens when the wind speed is high. And it is always said that air moves from high pressure area to low pressure. Okay, so air always moves from a place where the pressure is high to a place where the pressure is low. So these 2 points you have to keep in mind, which is very important. And it is also said that the greater the difference in pressure, the faster the air moves. If the difference between the two pressure, that is high pressure and low pressure, is more, the difference is more, then the air moves fast. If the difference is less, then the air moves slowly. Next topic is air expands on heating. Okay, so the air expands means air occupies more space when it is hot. The hot air occupies more space as compared to cold air. Now we can understand this property of air with an example or with an activity. What you have to take is, you have to take a boiling tube and attach on the mouth of the boiling tube a balloon. Then after that you have to keep that boiling tube in a beaker that contains hot water. What you will see that the balloon is blown. Okay, and when you keep that same boiling tube with a blown balloon into cold water, all the air that is inside the balloon goes off and the balloon becomes deflated. It becomes flat. Now, why this happens? So, now the next experiment shows that, tells you that you have to take two paper bags. You have to put a burning candle below one of the paper bags, and what you will see that the paper bag under which you have put a burning candle, that blows and it starts to move up as compared to the other paper bag. So why this happens? So because when the air becomes warm, okay, when the air becomes warm, it becomes lighter and it expands. Okay, when the air gets heated up, it expands and occupies more space, and that is why in these two experiments the warm air was moving up and it was occupying the space wherever it was getting. Okay, and that is why in the first experiment the balloon was blown up, and in the second experiment the paper bag it became light in weight and it started to move up, because it is said that the warm air is lighter than the cold air, and this is the reason why the smoke goes up. Smoke comes out from where? It comes out from the vehicles. It's the hot gas. So that is why as it is hot, it is light in weight and it rises up. It expands and it rises up. Okay. So in nature, there are several situations where warm air rises at a place and the air pressure at that place is lower. So from the places from where the air becomes warm and rises up, the air pressure there at that place is very low. And as we had studied in the land breeze and sea breeze, that whenever the hot air rises up, the cold air takes its place to fill the space, and this process we call it as convection. In the process in which the air moves, we call it as convection. Okay, so everybody should try to do these experiments which we have studied up till now about the topics that air exerts pressure, then high speed winds are accompanied by low air pressure, and the the recent topic that we studied, that is air expands on heating, means air becomes light in weight and occupies more space when it is hot or warm. Now we studied three properties, as I said, as I told you in the last video, that we studied what? We studied that air exerts pressure, high wind speed is accompanied by low air pressure. And the last property that we studied, that air occupies space or air expands on heating. Now the next topic here is wind currents are generated due to uneven heating on the earth's surface. Okay, so this wind is generated, or the wind moves because of the uneven heating is not same at all places on the earth's surface. So which are the two situations which are explained here? First one is uneven heating between the equator and the poles. As we know that the regions which are near to the equator means they are near to the sun, and they get heated up very fast because the climate is there very hot. On the other hand, it's the totally opposite thing on the poles. The poles are very far away from the sun, and because of that, they are always, the climate there is always cold. Okay, so regions close to the equator get maximum heat from the sun, and the air in these regions get warm. So the warm air rises, and the cooler air from the polar regions, okay, from the regions where the temperature is very low, that cold winds move to this regions which are situated near the equator, and takes the place from where the hot air has moved up. So these winds blow from the north and the south towards the equator. At the poles, the air is colder than that at the latitudes about 60 degrees. So the warm air at these latitudes rises up, and the cold air from the polar regions rushes in to take its place. So there is a movement of air. So in this way, wind circulation is set up from the poles to the warmer latitude. So this has been shown in this figure, that how the air is moving from the equator to the poles, from the poles to the equator, and because of this there is a flow of air, or the movement of air, which is due to the uneven heating, means not same amount of heating on all parts of the earth surface. So first we studied about the heating on the equator and the poles. Similarly, the next is the heating on the land and water, which we already studied in chapter 4. Then we studied the land breeze and sea breeze. We saw that in the daytime the land gets heated up very fast, but water takes some time to get heated up. But so, in summer season near the equator, the land warms up faster, and most of the time the temperature of the land is higher than the water. So, what happens? The air that is above the land gets heated and rises up, and the cool air that is above the oceans and seas, that start to move to the land, and this causes the movement of air. The flow of this causes the winds to flow from the oceans towards the land, and the winds which move from the oceans to the land, they are called monsoon winds. Why? Because they also carry some amount of water vapor in them, and they are responsible for causing rains in different places. So the winds from the oceans carry water and bring rain, and these monsoon winds are also a part of the water cycle. So the monsoon winds carry water and it rains. So when it rains, farmers are very happy because their crops can be grown easily. There are many songs which are also uh, based on this monsoon winds. So there are many things which are related to the monsoon winds. So this is how the air moves. You can see in this picture, this picture shows you the movement of the air from the poles to the equator, and this shows you the movement of the air from water to land. Okay, this is the heating of land and water, and this is the heating up of uneven heating of equator and the poles. So you can see here the waves are moving from the water to the from south to north. Here it is moving from north to south. Okay.